All right, in some point in your life, you've probably heard the term progressive overload somewhere, and people just say it in their videos and kind of expect you to understand it. I'm going to explain exactly how it works and how you can apply it to your training and your diet to consistently make progress and never plateau. So let's do it. I'm going to start first by defining the word because I think that's probably a good idea before we go any further. And I'm going to do that by splitting up the two words that it's made out of, progressive and overload. If we were to look at progressive, if I were to define it, it would be doing more of an action over time. So what does that look like? If you get in a car and then you drive the car a certain distance to this X, and then every time you get in the car, you drive a little bit further, even if it's by a few meters, a kilometer, every time you get in the car and drive, you go a little bit further every single time. So it doesn't seem like much, but from here to here, there's some extra distance. From here to here, there's some extra distance, and so on. And you just keep going further and further and further every single time. Progressive means to do more of an action over time. What does overload mean? Overload means doing more of an action than what a system can handle. Essentially, you're going past the current capacity. So I'll use the car example once again. Let's just say it's you in the car and you drive a certain distance, and then it's you and another person in the same car. You drive further. Then it's you and two people and you drive the car further. Then it's you and three people and 500 pounds worth of luggage and you drive further. You can see that every single time they get in the car, there is more and more weight added. And eventually the car gets maxed out by the amount of weight that it can handle. And it'll either break down, it won't start, it won't run, and you'll be stranded. But here you can see that there's progressively doing more of an action over time. There is progressively more distance driven, and there is also progressively more people or more weight in the car. And if you're constantly pushing the capacity of what the car can handle, eventually you are going to overload its ability to carry a certain amount of weight. Let's say that this guy is you, and this guy, you, have a limit on the amount of output that you can produce in a single workout. What do I mean? There's going to be a limit, this little ceiling over you, to the amount of weight you can lift, the amount of reps you can do with every weight, the amount of feel that you have in the muscle when you're contracting and stretching it. There's going to be a limit on your capabilities. And so if you remember our definition from earlier, progressive overload is doing a little bit more, or at least reaching this ceiling, and doing this repeatedly over time. Now, if you're somebody who does not train hard or push themselves in the gym, you're never really going to reach this ceiling at all. And so that happens. I mean, if you want a real example, you've probably seen the guy in your gym who's been training for 6 or 7 years and claims that his life goal is to get jacked, but it doesn't even look like he works out. And then you watch him work out and he never pushes himself to the point of, muscular exhaustion. There has to be a threshold that you have to at least reach or cross that workout in order to push this ceiling higher up. Now you can push this new ceiling up in many different ways. You can push it up by adding more weight to the bar, doing more reps, doing more sets, slowing down the lowering phase. So if I'm going to, actually, I'll grab a dumbbell right now. I got one within reaching distance. If I were to curl this 15-pound dumbbell and I just drop it down, that's a lot easier than me curling this dumbbell and lowering it down slowly under control. And so you can increase the amount of time that you're lowering the weight. There's a bunch of different ways that you can, quote, progressively overload, because adding weight to the bar is not the only way that you can build muscle. So you can progressively overload by doing more sets, by adding weight to the bar, by slowing down your eccentric, by slowing down your concentric, slowing the raising phase of the lift, by incorporating isometrics, so lifting the weight up and holding it there for a moment, by decreasing rest time. I don't recommend doing this too often because you don't want to be running on fumes your workout, but if you're resting a little bit less and then training more, that is technically progressive overload. The idea is to do more to drive intensity to then push that ceiling. So doing more doesn't just mean going from 2 sets to 3, but my intensity of training gets worse. Adding more quantity and trading more quality to me is never really worth it, because you never want your quality of training to get worse. If you're less intense, less focused, you don't feel the muscle as much when you're training. You're kind of just going through the motions, not really paying attention. I've seen some people do curls with one arm and look at their phone in the other. This is blasphemy. This is ridiculous, but it's a real thing. People will do 5, 6, 7 sets of an exercise, but all of their sets are poopy. They suck. And so what happens is, even if you're doing more, quote, work, if your quality of work is getting worse, then you're just piling up turds. It doesn't matter, right? Somebody could write 50 books, but if all the books suck, then, that's not going to be a very good author. And so the objective of working out, going into a singular workout, is not, okay, I'm this skinny guy right here, and by the end of this workout, I want to be Mr. Olympia. By the end of this workout, I'm going to walk out of this chest day, out of this Planet Fitness, and somehow Mr. Olympia is going to appear next to me, and they're going to give me the crown. That's a crown. And they're going to give me the crown, and they're going to say, I'm Mr. Olympia by the end of this workout. You don't become something by the end of the workout. All you're doing is pushing this ceiling. If you trained as hard as you possibly could, you maintained your good form, and you did not sacrifice this form. Like I said, the quality and quantity of work. If your form gets worse in order to lift more weight, that is not progressive overload. This does not work in a muscle building context. If you're adding more weight to the bar, but if I'm curling, right? Let's just say I usually curl 15 pounds. If this were 40 pounds, but I'm curling this 40 pounds and I'm launching the weight up like this, my bicep isn't really doing any of the work. I'm gathering momentum in order to lift this weight. Instead of using a weight that I know I could handle a little better, that doesn't mean the weight's light. It means the weight is as heavy as I can possibly lift without sacrificing my form. And then I lower it slowly. Then I contract and squeeze. Then I lower it slowly. So the goal wasn't to be Mr. Olympia or weigh 300 pounds by the end of our chest day. The goal was that, hey, we have this limit here. There's a limit on how much I can lift. And last week when I did my barbell curls, I used 70 pounds on the barbell and I got 8 reps. I tried to get the 9th, but I failed on the 9th, meaning I got 8 successful reps. Well, guess what the next goal is for this next workout? The goal is to get that 9th rep. And if you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, eating enough calories, which we'll cover shortly, you are most likely going to get that 9th rep. Therefore, this limit that used to be too much for you is now crushed and you move up. Next week, what do you think happens? 10th rep. Next week, what do you think happens? 11th rep. Next week, what do you think happens? 12th rep. And then you just keep progressing. Now you're not going to go 13, 14, 15, a billion, a trillion reps, right? You're going to increase the weight over time. So what do we do in this scenario? Let's just say my rep range for what I want to fail inside of, I want to fail between 8 and 12 reps. Well, shoot, I'm already doing 12 plus reps with this 70 pounds on the barbell curl. What do I do now? Like I said, we're not going to go 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way to a trillion infinite reps. We're going to make a change in the amount of load that we're taking on. Therefore, since we've already been overloaded with these limits using the 70 pounds, and we've broken through these limits every single time, now it's time to progressively add more limits. What's the easiest way to add a limit? Add weight to the bar. How much weight do we add? That's a great question. I personally add 10% of the weight. So in this case, it would be going from 70 to 77 pounds. If you don't have a 77-pound barbell, that's okay. Just go to 80 pounds. You can always round up or round down slightly. Your call. I prefer to round up personally. And so now you're curling 80 pounds. What do you think happens next? How does our training change? It doesn't change. It stays the exact same. We're still lifting in the 8 to 12 rep range, but now we have 80 pounds instead of 70. So do you think once you add this extra 10 pounds to the bar, once you go from 70 to 80, that you'll still be able to do 13, 14, 15, 16 reps? No, you are going to have a limit. This looks pretty familiar, but now the limit is not with 70 pounds, it's with 80 pounds. And your rep range is 8 to 12. And you curl this 80 pounds for the first time. You curl to failure. You train as hard as you possibly can until you cannot lift that weight anymore. And you get 9 reps. What do you think happens next? Well, next time you go do your barbell curls, let's just say it's a week later, and you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, you're eating in a slight calorie surplus, you're eating enough protein, that number is most likely going to go up. And you're going to notice that, hey, last week I failed on the 10th rep, I got 9 successful reps. This week, I failed on the 11th rep. I got 10 successful reps. I just gained a rep. What happens next week? 11, 12. What happens now? Are we going to go to 13, 14, 15? No, we're going to add 10% of the weight onto the bar. In this case, it'd be 8 pounds, but once again, you can round up. So we go to 90 pounds. And then all you're doing is rinsing and repeating. So you're noticing that this process of progressive overload is not some mythical black magic sorcery. It's just we train as hard as we possibly can, reach this limit. Let's just say it's 9 reps. I eat, I sleep, I recover, I come back, do the same exercise again. Then I notice it's 10 reps. Next week I come back, it's 11, then it's 12. And over a month, I've now added 10 pounds to my barbell curl. So I went from 80 pounds to 90 pounds. And all you're doing is rinsing and repeating. Now, it would be really nice to live in a world where you can progress every single time you go in the gym, but the reality is eventually you are going to hit a plateau. There's going to be a cap, a limit on the amount of weight that you can lift, the amount of reps you can do, that you just can't seem to get over with just another workout next week. There's going to be a few extra steps you have to take care of. So what are those steps, and how can you even tell if you plateau? Well, first off, if it isn't obvious already, I'd highly recommend that you track your workouts. So what do I mean by tracking workouts? Well, I can give you a little illustration. When I go in the gym, I have the exercise that I'm going to do, and then I have 3 columns: the amount of reps I get, the amount of sets I do, and the weight that I use for that set. So let's just say it's my first set and I get 8 reps with 80 pounds on barbell curls. Then I do pull-ups if it's a back and bicep day, and I get 12 reps on my first set, and it's a body weight exercise, so I have 0 pounds. And I do this for every single exercise I do. I track all the reps, I track all the sets I do, and I track all the weight I lift. And the objective is to get at least 1 more rep every single time I go and train my back and biceps workout, or I add weight to the bar. And you can see from that 10% that we've talked about earlier, this would mean going from 80 to 90 pounds. This would mean going from 0 to 10 or 15 or 20 pounds if I'm going to be adding weight to a body weight exercise that I normally don't have any weight added to. And so I'm tracking every single exercise I do for the amount of reps I'm doing, the amount of sets I'm doing, and the weight that I'm lifting. And I've done that for every single workout for the past 2 years straight. If it isn't obvious already, I really recommend you do this, because it's not something that directly drives muscle growth. This will not cause more muscle growth, but it shows you exactly where you are, exactly how much weight you're lifting, exactly how strong you're getting, exactly which exercises and which muscle groups you're plateauing on. Because if your curls are getting stronger, but your pull-ups are staying the same or getting weaker, this could be an issue that you are doing too much volume on your pull-ups, or you're exhausted by the time you get to your pull-ups, so you're not very strong, or you get really bad sleep, or you have a weak back just genetically. There's going to be a couple speed bumps in the road. You're not going to have, perfect progression every single week, 1 rep, 1 rep, 1 rep, week after week for 10 straight years. You're going to run into a plateau. Tracking workouts will show you exactly when and where that plateau is taking place, so you can take action on it. But let's just say you track your workouts. How do you know that you have now encountered a plateau? How can you tell? So I'll erase our little guy here. Plateaus in the gym usually come in the form of not being able to do more reps with the same weight or more reps with more weight over time. What a plateau usually looks like in the gym is if you're lifting and you're getting stronger week after week, all of a sudden you have a ceiling that normally you've been able to get through every single workout, but this one seems a little bit tougher to push past than the other ones. And so how do we get over this ceiling? Well, there's a few reasons why that might happen. And it's not just because of your training. Some training problems can be solved with a diet or with sleep. Some sleep problems can be solved with a better diet. Some diet problems can be solved with a better diet. Usually the diet is one of the things that I check out first, but we'll talk about the signals that you have encountered a plateau. The biggest one is going to be obviously that you are not getting stronger week after week, or at least on a regular basis. If you are getting 8 reps with your pull-ups, and then 6 months later, you're still getting 8 reps with your pull-ups, and you're training to failure on both of these sets, I would consider that a plateau. That number should be going up either in more reps or more weight or both over time, unless you have like sarcopenia or some sort of muscle loss disease. The second, and this is a more day-to-day kind of signal, is that you're feeling more weak and tired. Just moping around, you feel more exhausted, you feel more lethargic, you feel lazier, you lose focus a little bit earlier. This is not always a problem that has to do with training. This could be because your diet got worse. You're not sleeping as much as you usually are. You're more stressed out from other things that are happening in your life. This could be business stress, familial stress, relationships, financial stress, stress with school, stress with your job, stress with your dog, whatever it is. There could be stress outside that is affecting the performance in the gym. And this typically happens, just really quickly, when you're stressed out. Cortisol, a hormone, is what's known as catabolic. If you're to look at anabolic, anabolic is building muscle. Catabolic means eating away at muscle tissue. We do not want to have elevated cortisol for extended periods of time. Another way to increase your cortisol, if you're trying to do that, is to not sleep. That is a very fast way to get more stressed out in the day-to-day, to make more rash decisions, to be more irritable, to be more impatient, to not think as well. You become dumber. That's not something I want personally. And for the diet, there are two main ways that this can affect you feeling weaker and tired in the gym and in the day-to-day and not progressing on your lifts. This could be a lack of calories / protein. So you could be under eating in calories, whether it's on purpose through a calorie deficit on a cut, or if you're eating less protein, there's no good reason for this at all. Both of these will cause your diet to be suboptimal, which means it's going to be less than ideal. The second is that you have worse quality of foods, and something that doesn't get talked about enough is poor meal timing. Your meal timing is getting worse, meaning that if you have 5 meals that you're supposed to eat throughout the day, you're not eating these meals at the times you set for yourself, and that causes you to either skip meals or eat meals really late into the night, therefore causing you to lose more sleep, end up more stressed, more cortisol, more catabolism, less fun. And all of these things, this whole conglomeration of issues, will also lead to you having worse pumps. Now, this is not a direct signal of a plateau, but if you're progressively looking flatter, even if you're in a bulk, because that's what we focus on this channel, is bulking, if you're progressively getting worse pumps, that really shouldn't be possible, because you're going to be eating, if you're in a bulk, you're going to be eating higher carbs than you normally are. And when you're eating higher carbs, that means your body is going to retain more water, especially inside the muscle. When you're bulking, you're also more likely to take in more sodium, meaning that it pumps blood to the muscles more efficiently. And so your pumps should be getting, you might not look leaner on a bulk as you're getting more bulked up because you're going to be gaining a little bit more body fat, but you should be looking bigger, more fuller in your shirts. If that's not the case, if these pumps are getting progressively worse, well, that's not ideal. All of these things will culminate in you experiencing a plateau in the gym, which what we just discussed is you're going to be getting stronger progressively on your lifts. Then you encounter a wall that you just can't quite get over. And so you can be stuck here for days, for weeks, for months. How do we get over this plateau? I have a very simple solution that has worked every single time, and that is to take a week off. Take a week off the gym. Do not go to the gym. Do not show up to do any activities at the gym unless it's cardio. Do not go and work out for 1 full week, for 7 days. And during these 7 days, you're not also going to slack off on your meals and your sleep. You are going to eat all of your meals that you know you're supposed to eat, either if you're eating in a calorie surplus, if you're eating at maintenance watching this, or if you're eating in a deficit, if you're eating in a cut. Eat all of the meals that you know you're supposed to throughout the day, and you're going to be sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night. I'll put a picture on the screen of exactly how I structure my calorie surplus with a full bulk tutorial, as well as my complete guide to better sleep on a bulk or just get better sleep year round. But I'm not going to go into how to nail these two things because that would make this video much longer than it needs to be. But those tutorials are up there. For these 7 days, you're going to be eating your meals and sleeping, and ideally doing cardio as well. Then you go back to the gym after 7 days. Do you go back into your 4, 5, 6 days a week routine? No, you're not going to go back 4, 5, 6 days a week and train balls to the walls. I recommend just cutting this in half. So what does that look like? If you train 4 days a week normally, for the next week, this next 7 days, go back 2 days a week. If you train 5 days a week, go back 3 days a week. If you train 6 days a week, go back 3 days a week. For this next 7 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you only train 3 days per week, because these extra days here are not going to be extremely beneficial if your body is exhausted. The reason that you're experiencing a plateau is because your body is exhausted from the training that you're experiencing. Having a worse diet, having worse sleep, and being stressed makes that a lot more likely. So I know it seems like you're trying to make progress. This is you, the stick man, and you're trying to move forward, and then you encounter a plateau, and you think the best way to get around it is to train more, try different exercises, try different rep ranges. Well, that might work. But if your body is feeling exhausted, if you're feeling super stressed out due to work, if your sleep quality is getting worse, if you notice that you're skipping meals, it's probably best to take a week off, which you're not going to lose any muscle from a week off, literally zero. You're going to come back twice as strong and bust right through that plateau every single time. I promise you that if your lifts are stagnating and you haven't made much progress, so let's just say you do your barbell curls and you keep getting 8 reps, 8 reps, 8 reps, 8 reps, and after 4 workouts in a row, you have not progressed at all. That's probably a month's worth of barbell curls that you have not progressed on. That's a month wasted. I don't want that, and neither do you. So you could do a few things here. You could do curls first when you're fresh in the workout and as strong as you could be. You could eat more carbs before your workout, so eat less carbs earlier in the day or further out from your workout. So if you eat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meals a day and you train over here between meal 4 and 5, have little to no carbs here, and then load all of your carbs in these meals and have a lot after as well. And so with these extra carbs, your body will hold on to more water, making you fuller, making you stronger for this workout. You could also change the rep range, right? If you're constantly lifting in the 8 to 12 rep range, try going lighter. Try going to 70 pounds instead of 80, and you might get 13 reps. Well, I think 13 reps with 70 pounds is a lot stronger than 8 with 80. So there's different things that you can do in the day-to-day. Put curls first in your workout when you're fresh. Have more carbs and more water before your workout, and change your rep range. Go lighter weights. Change the progressive overload. Progressive overload does not have to be weight. Progressive overload can be more time lowering the weight. Even if you're doing the same amount of reps, if it takes you twice as long to lower the weight, that is progressive overload, PO. You could add intensifiers after your sets. So after you do your set of curls, maybe you go and grab a lighter barbell and immediately pump out another set, do a drop set, do supersets, myo reps, rest pause training, negatives, force negatives. There's so many intensifiers you can try. That's another way to go about it. But at the end of the day, if your body is just plain exhausted, everything else that is not resting to get back to the gym, anything else that is not resting is just noise. And all that remains is for you to get back and recover. You do that, I promise, that plateau that you were dealing with that you cannot get over, if you just take a week off, you'll come back twice as strong.